Welcome to another one of my live streams. I almost didn't make it to this one. I just got over a really bad scare with severe sepsis, and I was in the hospital on one of the acute care floors. I'm still on IV antibiotics, but I'm getting a little better every day, so that's good. As for today's live stream, we'll be reading from my book, Was I Ever Normal?, which is published and available for sale at most retail chain bookstores and multiple independent bookstores, both as a paperback and an ebook. Hold on, guys. I just want to adjust my camera a little bit. Let's see if I like this better. Sorry, guys. Anyway. Still don't like my camera. Now I like my camera. So, we last left Cassie in chapter 25, where she was lost in a haze of hallucinations and completely disconnected from reality, doing her best to just try and make it through the school day, even if that included sitting outside the school psychologist's office for hours or dissociating and leaving school to cut up her chest with a broken piece of beer bottle. We'll begin reading here where Cassie is lost inside herself, trying to figure out how to cope with her intense mental pain. I started to wonder about whether I should just kill myself. Inside my head, I tossed around the idea of sharing the extent of my problems with my therapist, who was supposed to be the one to help me deal with these kind of feelings. But I was too scared to be so honest. I was afraid I'd feel too naked and exposed. One day, when I was with Christine and Anne, I told them about the depths of my depression and the constant barrage of voices that were tearing my life apart. Maybe you need to be in the hospital, Christine suggested. I just nodded. I knew I might be at that point. If you feel like that's what you need, then you should just tell your mom, Christine said. I nodded again, but inside me, I knew I couldn't say anything to her. There was no way I could disappoint her again. Not like that. I was tired of feeling bad. It felt to me like things inside me were building up into something. But I didn't know what that something was. Would it be death? Losing my mind completely? Was everything about to come crashing down around me? I was scared that my whole world was about to dissolve right through my hands. The depression and the voices were consuming me. Dying seemed like it would be the only escape. Again, I wondered what would happen if I told my therapist how bad things had gotten. Again, I decided not to, because I was afraid of what she would do. I felt a lot of confusion. My brain refused to focus. 9th grade was almost done, but it felt like even one more hour of school would kill me. I spent most classes writing my journal. Usually, the things I wrote were random, had no grammar structure, and made no sense. But it helped to have the feeling of a pen in my hand and a journal in my lap. It helped me feel like I was able to express myself without the feeling of being too revealed. Several times during those last few months in 9th grade, I would find myself unable to sleep. And it was those nights that the command hallucinations, mixed with my own suicidal depression, would drive me right to the edge of ending it all. A couple times it got so bad that I ended up calling different suicide hotlines. I'd found the numbers in the back of my chicken soup for the teenage soul books. It didn't seem to help much, but the human contact of having another voice on the other end of the phone line did offer me enough solace to keep me alive. I didn't tell my parents about the late night phone calls, and I would go to school the next day, just like normal. During the last month of ninth grade, I was living off liters and liters of Diet Coke. I was constantly shaking from all the caffeine, and it was probably intensifying my racing thoughts. I started to feel sick physically as well. My head would ache all day long and into the sleepless nights. I started carrying around my stuffed animals again. They would come to school with me in my backpack. I didn't feel safe without their protection. Sometimes in school, I would go into the girls' bathroom and pull out a stuffed animal. I would cradle my little red arms and gently whisper to them as if they were my little baby that I needed to protect. I had over 70 stuffed animals in my collection at home. I knew each one's name and personality and could tell you the exact story of how I acquired him or her. I found myself preparing to die around the middle of June of that 8th grade year. I'd been fading away for months, and there's only so much fading a person can do before they disappear completely. Visions of what my death would look like began to take over my head, popping up at different times throughout the day. I would get mental pictures of myself falling out windows. I would see my head smacking against the pavement, dark blood pooling around my short, dark brown hair. We'll help you. We'll make sure it happens quickly and is over with fast. Don't worry, Cassie. You are making the right choice. Death will free you from all this. Death is the answer. Death, no more breath. Death, no more breath. Death, final breath. Death, death, death. Fellingham's voice echoed throughout my head. For once, he sounded more soothing than threatening. He reminded me of Para's lullaby tones from years before. I started to worry that someone would try and stop me. I wondered if I would ever see my therapist again. I worried that I would talk too much and that she would figure out my plans. I made plans to rip up and throw away all my journals in one of the school's dumpsters. I didn't want people to remember me by the haunted words I'd written. I no longer even attempted to do any schoolwork. In my mind, I was already dead. The world had even started to look different to me. Everything was misty and distant, like I was just a ghost wandering through. I tried to convince myself that I was doing the right thing, that I wasn't just being lazy, that I wasn't just giving up, that I wasn't about to become just another statistic, just another teen suicide, just another tagged body in the morgue, just another, oh, if she had only gotten past this, she would have had so much potential. Fellingham had promised me that I would be free, that once I left this frightening world behind, then things would get better. Besides, I had no other choices left. I'd burned all my bridges, and it seemed like there was no real help available to me. Fellingham told me to overdose. He said it would be the easiest and the least messy method. He said I had to take more pills than ever before, so that even if someone found me afterward, or I chickened out and told my mom what I'd done, I would be too poisoned to save. I started asking people for Tylenol, Advil, or Benadryl. My voice was unsteady when I asked, but nobody thought twice about handing me a couple of pills. I wondered if I'd go to hell, but I decided that I wouldn't because I was already living in my own little hell. The way I consoled myself was by thinking soon I would just be another dead body, buried in the hard, unforgiving ground, put away and forgotten. The thought felt comforting, not frightening. Late one night in June of ninth grade, I couldn't sleep. The voices and my own racing thoughts wouldn't leave me alone. My parents weren't home that night. My grandparents were supposed to be taking care of me. I felt even more vulnerable and unprotected without my parents around. I got out of bed and counted my pills as a weird way of reassuring myself. I had 12 ibuprofen, 16 extra strength Tylenol, 10 Seroquel, 24 aspirin, and 17 Benadryl. I didn't know if it was enough. I decided that I would buy a bottle of extra strength aspirin to take on top of everything else. I planned to get it the following morning. I tried again to sleep, but I couldn't. The intense stress kept triggering repeat series of complex partial seizures in my right leg. Every time I was brought back to full and complete awareness, the voices were screaming and singing and carrying on. My breathing was fast and shallow. My thoughts were running halfway dressed through my head that was already too congested with naked thoughts, and even a few feelings that were wearing costumes and running in circles on a hamster wheel inside my brain, but getting nowhere. The voices were getting louder and louder, so loud I could hear nothing but their frightening tones and the blood pulsing in my ears. You will take the pills, and you will take them tonight. No, I whispered back. This life is nothing but a sham, a mirage. Your real life will start once your spirit is released from your body. It is then, and only then, that you can be free and truly live. Stop talking to me, I pleaded. Just take the damn pills. Take them all. Don't be disobedient. I can't. I have to say goodbye to my parents first. I have to wait until tomorrow afternoon. You will be sorry. You really, really will. Reality began melting away. The walls looked like they were peeling off, revealing a thick fog. Monster faces began to creep in through the fog. My body was shaking harder than ever. I tried to remember to breathe. My hand groped around until it closed on the pill bottle. It held all the medications I was planning to take. As soon as I was holding it, I felt a feeling of relief. The walls returned to their normal state. The monsters retreated into the walls. I stopped shaking as hard. I knew two things. One, I was in trouble if I didn't take the pills. Two, I wasn't ready to take them that night. Weighing my options, I finally realized that the only way I could keep myself in the right reality long enough to avoid killing myself that very night was to connect with another human being. Hey guys, if you can give me some likes, I'd really appreciate it. I couldn't talk to either of my grandparents. It was too late to wake them up, and besides, they wouldn't understand. I looked at my desk. There was the paper I was looking for. On the paper were the numbers of various suicide hotlines. I figured that if I didn't want to commit suicide that night, then maybe talking to someone from a suicide hotline would be enough to help me postpone my suicide until the following afternoon. I called one of the hotlines. My fingers quivered as I punched the numbers into my phone. The voices were ranting and raving that I was doing the wrong thing, that I was making a mistake, that I was a screw up. They were so loud that I barely heard when a man answered the phone and asked me for my name. He had to ask me 2 or 3 times before I understood that he wanted my full name. I'm Cassie. What's your last name? He asked. I don't want to say, I finally answered. I was afraid of giving out too much personal information. How old are you? He asked. 13, I answered, figuring that my age wouldn't tell him much. What's going on tonight? He asked me. I feel like killing myself, I answered, purposely avoiding mentioning voices that had planted the idea in my head and were now screaming in my ears. Adults didn't ever seem to want to hear anything about the voices. Why? Asked the hotline guy. I just feel like life is too much and not worth it. My voice wavered and shook as I answered his question. Do you have a plan to hurt yourself? I hesitated at this question. Finally, I decided that he wouldn't be able to offer up a magical solution if he didn't know the situation. I decided to tell him the truth about everything except the voices. Yes. What's your plan? Asked the man. I have these pills that I've been collecting, and I want to wait until tomorrow to take them. I really don't want to kill myself tonight, but I'm scared that I might. I don't know if I can stop myself, I admitted. The man said something, but I couldn't hear him. Fellingham had let out a blood-curdling scream right in my right ear. The man said something else. I couldn't quite hear that either. The narrator was narrating the way the seizure in my right leg was making it rapidly jiggle, up and down, up and down, up and down. The room was getting brighter and then dimmer, brighter and then dimmer. I had a brief moment of a blackout as the seizure pulled me under. When I returned to consciousness, my heart was still racing. I had some sort of gut feeling that talking to this guy any longer was a bad idea. I think that I have to go, I told the man. Why do you have to go? He asked. Because I'm tired, I lied. Why don't you stay on the phone a little longer? Suggested the man. I can't, I told him. I'm getting really tired. I really just want to go to bed, I lied again. Okay, but can I talk to your mom first? My heart froze in panic. My mom's not home, I told him. Who is home then? He asked me. My grandparents. But I don't want to wake them up. They're older. They need their rest. And I really don't want to scare them, I explained. Don't you think they'd be more scared if they found you dead? The man pressed. I cringed as Fellingham laughed. I didn't want to have to think about that part. I wasn't planning on doing anything tonight, though, I explained with notes of desperation pouring into my voice. But can you promise that you won't? I paused too long before answering. We both knew what the answer was, and it wasn't a yes. You need to wake your grandparents up and put one of them on the phone, the man instructed. I could practically feel all my plans come crashing down around me. I really can't, and I really should go, I told him. I was begging at that point, and really, really regretting ever calling the dumb hotline in the first place. I should have known better. I should have known there were no magic fixes. How many times did I have to relearn that? I just wanted to get off the phone. I contemplated hanging up, but that just seemed too rude. Let's just talk a little longer, the man begged. I started to wonder if something was up with this dude. Why did he keep insisting that I stay on the phone? The man kept talking to me a few more minutes, I kept trying to hang up, but he kept talking and telling me to stay on the phone. Just when I really started to worry, I thought I heard sirens. And that is the end of chapter 26 of Was I Ever Normal? What did you guys think of it? Questions, comments, anything, reactions, anything you want to say. Questions for me about my health, questions for me about the book, where to get it, any questions at all, questions about the writing process, anything at all. I'll answer any questions that you have for me. Elaine, I'm doing okay. I was really, really sick. They diagnosed me with severe sepsis without shock, and I was in the critical care step down unit and the ICU. But I'm doing better now. And I'm still on IV antibiotics in this mess of tubes here. But I'm feeling a lot better. At first I was sleeping all day, but I've been awake all day today for the first day, so that's progress. Oh, thank you, Mary. Thank you. I'm glad you think I'm an incredible writer. I really appreciate that. Yeah, Cassie really wishes people would understand her illness. She's been turned down so many times by adults that she just figures adults don't want to hear about her hallucinations, so she's given up talking about them. Yeah, I did black out a couple times this morning. I was in and out a little bit this morning, but other than that, I've been awake all day. Um, so that's like huge progress because yesterday I couldn't wake up until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It really is awful to feel like no one understands you. It's a really awful feeling. It is frustrating, Mary. It really is. What do you mean by that, David? Can you clarify? Is that who is who that who's they? Who do you mean by they? I'm not quite sure what you mean by your question, Dave. I don't know who you mean by they. Do you want to explain your question a little better, Dave, so I can understand? But back to you, Mary. It is so frustrating when people don't understand the lifeline illness. Oh yeah, the hotline people. Yeah, they'll trace your call if you are suicidal. Certain hotlines do, and certain hotlines don't. It all depends on the hotline. But especially if it's a kid and you're actively suicidal and have a plan and can't promise you can keep yourself safe, they will trace your call. Where in the book can we find chapter? What do you mean where in the book can we find chapter? This chapter, I don't have labels for the chapters in the actual book. I separate them by chapters for YouTube. In the book, they all just flow. I have headings for each like separate like poem because it's set up in verse, a novel in verse, but it's not like chapters. But it's towards the later part of the book. This chapter is toward the later part of the book. If that answers your question, Christina. Does that answer your question, Christina? Gotcha. It takes her a while, but eventually she does find someone who listens to her. She does find a good therapist, and her parents become a really strong support for her. And she does learn that it's an illness and that it's a real thing, and people start believing her. Um, and there is a happy ending, and she learns how to cope with her illness through various different techniques and medication changes and coping techniques like mindfulness. All right, I think I'm going to end here. Thank you, Jerry. I really appreciate you saying that. That's really sweet of you. I'm so glad you came to my live stream. I'll invite you to future ones as well. Next time I'll be reading from Saving Destiny. Oh, you're very welcome, Mary. I'm so glad you enjoyed this live stream. So next time I'll be doing Saving Destiny, chapter 27. You're very welcome, Elaine. I'll be doing Saving Destiny, chapter 27. I don't know what I'm calling it yet. I haven't titled it yet. I don't title them in the actual book. I just title them for the live streams. So, yeah. So I'll see you guys then. Love y'all so much. You guys are the best. Take care.